Alright guys, welcome back. I forgot to do one thing the last time, and that's to take these changes to the animation that I have here and then plot that onto my control rig. So I'm gonna select that and have that plotted. Okay. As we can see, it still moves a little bit, and I'm not too happy about that, but I'm gonna try and do something else instead. So I'm gonna be taking a look at how we can make this loop, and then I'm gonna make a pass at this at the end also, and see if that fixes things up. So I'm gonna take the hand constraint and turn that off, and also the other one, and then see how much difference that make. Okay, so it seems a little difference, but not too much. Anyway, so I'm gonna switch to the storyboard again, and I'm gonna take this and insert a current take and frame open that by pressing A. So the way to make this loop is to pick somewhere in between here, and then use the razor tool, and then pull the beginning of this over to the end, and the end to the beginning. So that means if I put these two together, when the animation runs from here and then loops back here, it's going to be seamless. But here's going to be a little hiccup here in between. If we turn on the story, you can see that it's going to be making a jump here. It's quite a big jump, by the way. So what you can do is to take this animation here, and you can overlap it quite a bit. And depending on how much you have to kind of experiment a little bit with this, but you can overlap quite as much as I do, or maybe a little bit less, but just experiment with this. But what I like to do when I have an idle animation here is to click on this symbol here, loop scale clip. So change it to this, and that means that I can now drag this over, so it becomes 23 frames. So if I let this run and see how it looks, it's gonna look like this. So it's still going to be like a breathing motion. It's not going to be that fast because I stretch the things, and but we got rid of the jumping in animation. And what you can actually see is the ghost of these two moving a little bit. Okay, so I'm fairly happy with this. So I'm just gonna select everything here, and I'm gonna frame start and end just to make sure I have the same number of frames, and then I'm gonna plot this to the current take. Like this, and then I'm going to turn off the story, so you can see that everything is looking correct. So it's still looping nice and fine. All right. I still have some stuff on the head going, which I'm not too happy about, but I'm going to take that at the end, I think. So what I will try as the last thing is to take the hand and then try and snap that position again, and then also the right hand, snap that position for the hand, and then try one more time and see if that will fix up the position, the fixation here. It's still moving ever so slightly to one of the sides here, so I'm gonna try something else instead. I have no idea why this doesn't work. Usually it does. For some reason it doesn't this time here. Actually, it seems to have a little bit of effect if I turn it on. I have no idea why it doesn't work. Usually this does work. Anyway, I'm gonna do something else. So I'm gonna take this and plot all this, plot all properties, like that, and then I'm gonna turn these two off again. Okay, so I still have, seems like it pops back every time I do this. Okay. Okay, so whatever motion we have on these hands, we don't really want them to be there. So I'm gonna go to the FCurves this time and go to translation. And I know that these two hands, since this is a very simple scenario, I don't want them to move at all during this sequence here. So I'm just gonna say, let's see, I want to do this on the auxiliary pivot. So I'm gonna take this one and turn this down. And then I'm gonna take the translation for these two guys here and put those up to 100. And let's just take one at a time, okay? And if we frame up on this, for example, and press A, let's take X just, we can see when we get zoomed in really far in, you see there's quite a lot of keys here. So actually we don't want any of these keys here. Although it seems flat, it's not flat. And that's why we can see some movement here. So I'm going to delete everything. So it's going to stay fixated in one place. And I'm going to do the same for the right hand, or rather the left hand, like this. So I only have one key in the beginning and one. So that means that now the whatever motion we had before, wow, still there. Huh. So weird. What am I doing wrong? Let's try and do this on the wrist effector actually, because now we have the wrist out here. Maybe there's some keys interfering here. I'm gonna take all the keys for the wrist also, and the keys from this one. And get rid of those. Okay. It looks like this hand is pretty stationary now, but this one still have some motion on it. And I cannot figure out why it does. That's pretty bizarre. I'm gonna clear this one, try and set this up to 100. It is now. Okay, so how did that look? Might actually be a little bit better. I have a feeling that the auxiliary pivot point was the one that was causing some of the trouble. Oh yeah, and by the way, I'm experimenting with trying to pull, take the IK pull up. I'm still seeing a little bit. I realize this is really small, but it's still annoying me a little bit because I can't really explain why it happens. Because when I plot this, you should have completely flat curves here, and this sure doesn't look flat to me, and this one either. And this one either. So something is messing this up for me. I have no idea why. That's really weird. Anyway, I think I will have to return to this because right now I'm just wasting time. But I guess this should demonstrate how we can get a clip to loop in a nice way. I'm gonna plot this back to the skeleton, and then I'm gonna take and fix the head on the UE4 mannequin skeleton itself. I found it to be easier that way. So I'm just finding the skeleton here and expanding up to the head. And I'm gonna switch to the curves and look on the rotation and press A. And you can see I have some keys here I don't really need. So I'm guessing some of the motion I have here, I could just squash that down like so. And let's play that again. So there's still a little bit of something right here. So I'm just going to take this one by one and say, okay, so this part here, let's take actually let's take this part here and say that we can squash up a little bit, and then we can take the rest here and then squash that up a little bit as well. So hopefully that should even it out just a tiny bit. And let's take a look at the y-axis. We have a lot of movement here that we probably don't really need. I'm going to take that up here, and looks like I pulled that one up a little bit too much, so I'm going to pull that down. Just making sure I don't have too many jumps in the curve. Yeah, sick. Yeah. Oh. All right. So just watching the head to see if I have some weird head bobbling now. And it looks pretty stationary now, without looking too weird, I think. Well, obviously you can do a lot of tweaks more on this. I can see some stuff with the shoulders, which are not really lined up as they should. But that's all in details section, I believe. But right now, I'm pretty satisfied with this. But if I wanted to make some more changes to this, I would plot this to my control rig again. So now I have the adjustments I made on the skeleton. I have that back on the control rig. And let's say I wanted to make some additional changes to the shoulders, for example. I would go to a separate animation layer. Let's say position my character here, and then could adjust a little bit. Whoops. I would definitely want to pinpoint or pin the hand translation for these guys here, and then maybe adjust a little bit on the shoulder for this one. Just pull it a little bit further back, maybe, or down. And perhaps I would also rotate. I have a rotation here I want to pin as well. Don't want that to change. I actually don't want this to change either. But let's try it without, see how much damage it does. Whoops. Okay, so I guess that looks a little bit better. Okay, so with that, I'm gonna set a key and play that again. So actually I ended up making these adjustments anyway. I could move this one also a little bit up. Yeah, let me just do that. Just a tiny bit. So Actually, I want to do that on the first frame as well here. So set it up here, set a key, and see how that looks. Yeah, now the elbow here needs to go out a little bit further, I think. So I'm gonna also adjust that one just a tiny bit. Now it seems like my character is, I need to move up a little bit, otherwise his arms are gonna be overstretched. And actually that fixed the shoulders. So I'm just gonna, whoops, let's do that here. So pull that up a little bit and it fixed itself. So set a key and play again. Okay, so I'm quite satisfied with this. I'm not gonna make many more changes on this. So actually, I was kind of jumping around quite a bit here in the end, but I hope you recognize some of the techniques or some of the tools I used, like pinning and using an animation layer and so on. So what I will end up doing here is to merge this back, and then I'm gonna plot this to my skeleton, and then I'm actually ready to export this animation. So at this point I would actually go ahead and since this ended up being what I will use, I will rename my take here. So right now it's named part, so if I needed to make a new copy of this, I would just leave this, but in this case I can just call this final square idle, and this is what I will eventually export. I already done this once and I can't really remember how the result was, but in case I wanted to export this, I would select branches and hit export motion file export with this selected, and give it a good name. Let's call this 3 square idle, because I already made one. And then I would select here selected models only. Default is, I think it is all models, but I would say select the models only. So that means that when I have this selected and I have selected branches, which will select everything underneath, because that's the way Motion Builder works, then we'll export all animations on here. So that's how you would get that out into Unreal Engine. So yeah, as I said, I did already export this to Unreal Engine, so I won't be doing this in this video. But once I have some more animations ready, I will start showing how they are looking and how we can start to incorporate the animations with a controller. So stay tuned for more and see you later. Bye bye.